This is Emily with MeatRx, and I have another success story with MeatRx with carnivore. And today I have Nevi. Nevi, hello.
Hello. Hi, Emily.
Hey, so tell me what things were like for you before carnivore. What do you want to talk to us about today?
So before I actually would have known about carnivore as it is today, then we actually were on a meat heavy diet, which I want to talk about today. I want to talk about, the value and the power of meat, even if you're not 100% carnivore. Um, and I don't even like to say that I'm carnivore even now because I'm not behaviorally carnivore. I don't like pounce on creatures and eat them. I, we get them from an abattoir, and so I like to say it's an animal-based diet. But I think animal-based nutrition really saved my mind, saved my sanity. We had a child that was diagnosed with cancer when she was 2. And we used regenerative meat locally sourced here from farmers that we knew. And it actually cured her cancer. That's kind of a different story. But curing her cancer wasn't enough to keep her with us because her structure was damaged so badly from the cancer that we did eventually lose her. But not because, not just because the cancer, but because of the damage that was done to her structurally from the cancer. And so we were at least able to make sure that she could stop suffering, which was very important to us, and just enjoy the time that she was here with us. And so we did accomplish that. And we did that with meat, with a very heavily meat-based diet, using only meat and vegetables that we source locally from people like farmers that we knew. And they were raising animals on grass. And we had produce that was never sprayed. Nothing was certified or anything like that, but everything was cleaner than clean because we knew the people who were raising the food. But then when we lost Mina, she was 4. And as you can imagine, we were shattered. Losing a child is when we lost her, then the first thing the doctors wanted to do was to put us on narcotics, Emily. And that was their solution, was to prescribe narcotics. And we had 2 surviving children, and I was confused, and I was shattered, and I was feeling, what I felt like was that I was buried alive. That's how I felt. And you just don't want to move. But also I had 2 children with me, that survived this. And they, at the time, were 18 months old. My daughter was 18 months old, and my son was 5.
I
So
cannot imagine that.
yeah, it was crazy. And of course, I thank God for them every day because they gave me a reason to have to even do something. Otherwise, I don't know that I would have any reason to want to do anything. And so I was operating some kind of way. And but I couldn't understand why they would want to put me on medication. Like, how is that going to help me? And I was like, the last thing I need is to not be able to focus and wake up because I have 2 kids still that I need to be responsible for. And I think that's irresponsible that they would want to put me on narcotics and then expect me to be able to drive my kids around or whatever. I don't understand. But
Where's the logic in that at all?
where's the logic in anything that the medical industry does? I'm sorry, but I sat in a children's hospital for 6 months, which was too long, and it did nothing. And I put our daughter on meat, and her cancer died. That's a different story. We'll talk about that in a different video. But in this one, I want to talk about overcoming grief because, I wasn't going to tell my story because I didn't have pictures. I don't have a before and after picture of my grief. I guess I could show pictures from before when I actually looked better before. And then I gained a bunch of weight in my grief. It was my body trying to, save me from some crisis, trauma, and your body reacts in different ways. And you don't always just put weight on because you're eating badly, because I was not eating badly. I was eating everything local, regenerative, and we were just on meat and vegetables. So technically I was more keto than keto even requires, because if we don't know where food comes from, where our food came from, we wouldn't eat it. And all I did was end up going more and more meat heavy. And at that time, I was eating a lot more meat because I was lazy and I felt like I was buried alive. And just out of lack of desire to want to cook, because that's what grief is. You don't really want to do anything. I would just go and warm up some meat or grill some meat. And smoking meat and grilling meat brings joy. It brings this relief. So it makes you want to eat. And to me, I just needed my kids weren't sure of what was going on, and I didn't need them to be more traumatized than they already were. And we didn't need to hold them in sadness. I mean, I was conscious of that. They're just kids, and they were kids. Like, they were still running around being joyful kids. Although my daughter didn't speak for an entire year. She literally stopped talking from the day her sister died till a year later, exactly to the day. And her brother was having his own battles. But I feel like us eating meat, and a lot of meat, because we only just ate the meat, we might have had it with a little bit of potatoes that we got from farms, locally, because that was easy and it made kids happy.
Mm-hmm.
The potatoes and the meat, and the meat and the potatoes.
And I like that part of your story, because it's not an extremist kind of a thing where it's all meat and only all meat. You were healing, you were in the grieving process, and you were meat heavy, like you said, but incorporating potatoes wasn't the end of the world. I think that's important.
I felt like I was honoring the laws of nature, and I was just doing what was innately, like, if I was craving it, we ate it. And I was craving meat and butter and potatoes, and a lot of butter on the potatoes, and a lot more butter on the potatoes. And we had access to raw dairy too. And so my kids had the raw dairy, and they had, and we had, raw sour cream with the butter on the potatoes with a lot of meat. And, it was actually really affordable because we didn't buy anything else. If you're just buying meat and potatoes, it's pretty cheap. And when people say they can't afford regenerative, I challenge everybody to go find a farmer who is raising animals near you, regardless of how they're feeding them, in terms of, like, people say they don't want grain fed or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, if they're outside on grass that you can see and those animals are happily frolicking around outside, then just eat them. It's okay. And, if you tell that farmer, hey, I only have this much money every week or every month or whatever, how much of this meat can I get? I want the meat and I want the fat from the meat. I want the suet and I want the meat. And how much can I get? I guarantee you that they will make you a deal. Especially if you say, I'm going to get it every week or every month, and you show up every week or every month. You tell them, I can only come here once a month because maybe you're too far from them or whatever it is. I didn't have enough money at that time to buy a whole month's worth of meat. So I used to drive to the farm every week, whatever I could get that week. When people tell me that they can't do it, I'm like, we were on food stamps and one income, and we couldn't apply for more support unless my husband quit working, which was stupid. So, we had, medical bills piled on us, and we had everybody coming after us for millions of dollars because she was in the hospital for, like, her bills were crazy, until I finally decided that's a different conversation, you know, when I just decided I wasn't going to pay the bills.
Well, and I think that's important because it explains where you were at. Because even if you're not being chased by a bear, your brain was still telling you that you were in survival mode. And so that's why your body was holding on to all that weight and all that grief, because that's where you were at. And then what did you do? You said that you ate meat heavy. And then what changes did you see from eating meat heavy through your grief?
It was amazing to me that for some reason, I mean, it took time, right? Like, but people, I was still able to engage in business. Like, I created a CSA because of what I learned from my daughter. I researched why she got sick and what I could do to help other people, and I literally launched an entire operation in my grief, because I wanted to honor her and I wanted to memorialize her in the ways that made sense to me. And I was able to articulate something to someone for them to participate.
And
So
you only kind of wrote a book.
I did write a book about it. I
So like that's pretty significant that you go from grief to being able to produce a book and a business. So that, I mean, that's huge.
well, it's amazing to me how the mind works and what happens, you know, when you are just like, I didn't want another person to have to go through what we did. I didn't want another child to have to suffer the way my daughter did. And that was all I cared about. And I feel like meat consumption and like being on that meat heavy diet allows you to ground and focus. You know, people talk about earthing, like going out and walking barefoot and earthing and centering. And when you're centering, you know that eating is earthing. Like, I don't think people realize when you're putting the meat in the mouth. Like, I love how Emily says, put the meat in the mouth, the meat in the mouth. I try to be like you now because it's so easy. But it's true. When you put the meat in the mouth, then you are earthing. And I don't think people consider that sacred act of taking life force and putting it in the mouth, and that's earthing. It is equivalent to putting your feet on the earth and gaining that magnetic healing. And so why was I craving that? I wasn't craving kale. I can tell you that. And I wasn't crazy. And I used to try to make myself, I used to feel guilty. And when we would be with family or whatever, then I would do a lot of, you know, trying to prepare vegetables. And I think I used to put a show on for everybody that we have greens, you know, because otherwise I'd be a child abuser or something. You know, it's the thing to do, right? So you kind of go through that. But I always felt horrible when we had company. Like, any of our family was here and I was feeding other people and I was having to put on that show, then I would be bloated and I felt like crap. And when everybody would leave, we would just go back to the meat and I would feel better. And I swear it like saved my life, but I didn't have any way to prove that. And then people started talking about paleo, and then people started talking about kids. Look, this all happened in 2007, 2008. You know, I mean, the iPhone just came out in 2008, just to put things in perspective. And it wasn't like anybody was really talking about this. If you were talking about how you ate, you were just being bougie and rude and hard to get along with. I mean, I think it's funny though, Emily, why do people think that vegetarians aren't a pain in the ass? Like, if somebody wants to come over and they tell you they expect you to make a vegetarian meal, that to me, that's a pain in the ass. It always has been. But but if I say that I just want to eat the meat, you know, okay, maybe it's expensive. I'm not trying to impose expense on you, but like, you don't need to feed me a ton of meat. But if I only want to eat the meat when I come over, then why is that weird? And why is it shocking? And I mean, kids do it. If you notice, kids will be like, I just want to eat that meat. Like, even if they only eat 5 bites, they'll be like, okay, bye, I'm going to go play now, you know? And we should just, I think, follow their lead. And when our children were in grief with us, I never, ever was going to diminish them and make them feel bad because they didn't want to eat something. And after everything we went through with Mina, the last thing I was going to do was make them feel like they had to eat anything. Do you know? Like, I don't know. I mean, our circumstances were kind of different. And so we were pushed into this weird thing. But the result of it was my kids were on meat, heavy. And we were on meat, heavy. And you can call me lazy or a bad mom or I don't really know what. But by the time it was all over with, I could talk to people. I could help people. I did probably lose myself in them. And I think that telling my story for a decade before I wrote the book was not good for my health. But once I wrote it and I was like, okay, just read the book because thank God I don't have to, this is what I did. I wrote a book about it. Just read it. And that way I don't have to keep telling the story. And I feel like I'm finally over that. I'm not carrying that emotional baggage anymore and having to repeat and relive all the details of that anymore. I mean, I'm doing it for this video because I want people to know that, some people think it's crazy that now I can find joy and I can operate in joy and not for not feeling the loss of my daughter, but I'm able to, with a lot of meditation as well. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I meditate every day. And, meditation has really helped me to be comfortable with knowing that she is with me all the time and everything's fine. And, things are always working out for me, even when it seems like things are not always working out for me. And I have two wonderful my surviving children are doing great and they're, gaining health. And I think it's powerful now when I hear all these other stories like yours about turning mental health around with just the meat. And then I think, wow, yeah, that was what happened. It was the meat.
I'm glad that you mentioned meditation because whenever you are so sick, like grief is paralyzing.
Yeah.
You may know that meditation would help, but you cannot meditate if you are paralyzed. If you are so grief stricken that you can't even get to that step, then it's pointless. So I love that meat.
People about that too. I mean, if you're in that grief or if you're in deep like loss of health, like you were not able to walk, right? And
no.
Yeah, if you're in that situation, I've worked with so many families now, thousands of them, where, there's someone who is unable to move. And I'm not going to suggest to that person they should meditate because they just need to put the meat in the mouth. That's what I would do. Just put the meat in the mouth. Meditate on that. Meditate on chewing the meat in the mouth because even for me at that time, making dinner was just warm. Oh, time to grill. Time to grill. I think we went through 5 grills. We blew them up. Like they would just literally fall apart. And I didn't even know you could do that to a grill. But we would just be grilling until the grease drippings would I think burn a hole in the bottom of the metal or something. But yeah, if you didn't know, you can ruin a grill. It was
That's crazy. That's crazy.
But
I think it is very important to tell stories like yours because it's not always about before and after pictures. And there's no way to depict what that grief, that paralyzing grief was and what this healing and grounding and wholeness is that you're operating in now. And I commend you for telling and sharing your story. I think it's really important because there's a lot of people out there that are hurting that they can't compare it to a before and after picture.
Yeah, I really encourage people to put the meat in the mouth and know that to heal your mind, you really just need fat that everybody's terrified of. And people used to say to me, well, it's not like you look like the epitome of, health, which they think everybody should just be some thin stick or something. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not going crazy.
That's huge. You're not on narcotics.
Yeah, I'm not on narcotics. To me, I'm winning every day because I just want to wake up. I am winning because I just feel like I can find joy. I'm winning because I am happy to meditate. I'm winning because I can get up and smile and laugh with my kids. And, the meat and the fat did that. And to me, that's winning. The fact that I want to get up and go somewhere and not stay in bed all day or talk about how, woe is me, my daughter died. A lot of parents lose their kids, a lot of parents go through all kinds of, trauma. People are just going generally through trauma. I feel like when I meet a 20-year-old who's in chronic pain, that it's probably as traumatic, if not more, than me losing my child. And I feel like it's really important for that person to know that they should be able to find joy. And that's why I became a carnivore coach, and I became part of the MeatRx platform. It's the reason why I host the, not just mental health, but mental and emotional health, because the emotional piece is really, really important to me. So I want to share that with you guys, because I think that you can't improve your mental health without improving the chemical balance of putting the meat in the mouth. And then, because that's the chemical, that's the medicine part. And then the focus on the emotion to know that you want to feel better. If you want to go towards happy, then, if you just try to think about the sunshine and the happy and like reach for it every day, and every day just feel a little bit better and a little bit better. And when you can't do it because it's too exhausting, because you think, the thought of meditation is exhausting, go to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and Nidhi, I gotta thank you because you've been a huge light in my life. You've been a cheerleader to me, and you have taken your happy and you have just totally multiplied it to not just me, to many, many people. And I highly recommend anybody who is going through any kind of grief or emotional struggle like that to reach out to Nidhi on MeatRx. And thank you so much for your time, Sis.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
No problem.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you like it, please share it with all your friends. And if you are interested in knowing my story or learning about the nonprofit work that I do, then please read my book. I'll make sure that there's a link in the notes. And while you're at our website, then, you could become a sustainer and help support regenerative agriculture. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.